Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to my next episode of the Prostrate Protestant podcast. So, in this episode, we're going to be delving into and looking at the history of the early church, starting with Jesus and his apostles, and we're going to finish from the beginning of the Roman Catholic age, starting from 325. Now, this episode will be a two-parter. So, in the first episode, we're going to look at the early forms of Christianity, which will be very interesting and revealing. Then the second part will focus on the persecution of the church by the Roman Empire. Hope you enjoy, brothers and sisters. God bless you all. When the prostrate Protestant, when the prostrate Protestant, when the prostrate Protestant goes marching in. Now, according to theologian James D.G. Dunn, there's four types of early Christianity, and that is Jewish Christianity, Hellenistic Christianity, Apocalyptic Christianity, and early Catholicism, which is also known as Proto-Orthodoxy. Now, what we're going to be focusing on in this episode is post-Christ's death to Constantine 325. This is going to be, from what I deem, the true Christian age, until obviously Catholicism and all these other denominations came out of it. So, let's get into it. So first of all, Jewish Christianity. That is the earliest form of Christianity, but was directly tied in with Jesus' followers. The Hellenistic Christianity is the Greek version, obviously Hellenistic comes from the Greek. Apocalyptic Christianity is that early type of doomsayers, the ones that go around the streets of London and saying the end is nigh, the end is nigh. But, this shows you how long ago this has been going on. And then we've got Proto-Orthodoxy, which is very interesting because this is a group that arose before Constantine converted to so-called Christianity, which was obviously, later known as Roman Catholicism. And they had the same language, the same vernacular as the Catholics do today. The heretical, you're a heretic if you don't believe in us, we're the universal church and that. So it's interesting how that existed many years before Constantine converted. Christianity emerged as a minor sect within Second Temple Judaism, a form of Judaism named after the Second Temple built 516 BC after the Babylonian captivity. Whilst the Persian Empire permitted Jews to return to their homeland of Judea, there was no longer a native Jewish monarchy. Instead, political power devolved to the high priest, who served as an intermediary between the Jewish people and the empire. This arrangement continued after the region was conquered by Alexander the Great, 356 to 323 BC. After Alexander's death, the region was ruled by Ptolemaic Egypt from 301 to 200 BC, and then the Seleucid Empire, 200 to 142 BC. The anti-Jewish policies of Antiochus, the Sixth Epiphanes, 175 to 164 BC, sparked the Maccabean Revolt in 167 BC, which culminated in the establishment of an independent Judea under the Hasmoneans, who ruled as kings and high priests. This independence would last until 63 BC, when Judea became a client state of the Roman Empire. Now, the decades after the crucifixion of Jesus are known as the Apostolic Age, because the disciples, also known as the Apostles, were still alive. Important sources for this period are the Epistles and Acts. After the death of Jesus, his followers established Christian groups in cities such as Jerusalem. The movement quickly spread to Damascus and Antioch, capital of Roman Syria at the time, and one of the most important cities in the empire. Antioch also later became known as a city in Asia Minor, or now known as Turkey. Early Christians referred to themselves as brethren, disciples or saints, but it was in Antioch, according to Acts 11 verse 26, that they were first called Christians, or Christian or in the Greek. According to the New Testament, Paul the Apostle established Christian communities throughout the Mediterranean world. He is known to have also spent some time in Arabia. After preaching in Syria, he turned his attention to cities of Asia Minor, which is now known as Turkey. By the early 50s, he had moved on to Europe, where he stopped in Philippi, and then travelled to Thessalonica in Roman Macedonia. He then moved into mainland Greece, spending time in Athens and Corinth. While in Corinth, Paul wrote his epistle to the Romans, indicating that there were already Christian groups in Rome. Some of these groups had been started by Paul's missionary associates, Priscilla and Aquila, and Epaenetus. Other estimates that by around AD 100, there were 7,000 Christians, about 0.01% of the Roman Empire's population of 60 million, which was a very low minority. Separate Christian groups maintained contact with each other through letters, visits from itinerant preachers, and the sharing of common texts, some of which were later collected in the New Testament. Jerusalem was the first centre of the Christian church according to Acts. The apostles lived and taught there for some time after Pentecost. According to Acts, the early church was led by the apostles, foremost among them Peter and John. When Peter left Jerusalem after Herod Agrippa I tried to kill him, James, brother of Jesus, appears as the leader of the Jerusalem church. Clement of Alexandria, 150 to 250 in AD, called him Bishop of Jerusalem. Peter, John and James were collectively recognised as the three pillars of the church, Galatians 2 verse 9. At this early date, Christianity was still a Jewish sect, therefore they were Jewish Christians at the time. Christians in Jerusalem kept the Jewish Sabbath and continued to worship at the temple. In commemoration of Jesus' resurrection, they gathered on Sunday for a communion meal. Initially, Christians kept the Jewish custom of fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. Later, the Christian fast days shifted to Wednesdays and Fridays in remembrance of Judas' betrayal and the crucifixion. James was killed on the order of the high priest in AD 62. He was succeeded as leader of the Jerusalem church by Simeon, another relative of Jesus. During the First Jewish-Roman War, from AD 66 to 73, Jerusalem and the Temple were destroyed after a brutal siege in AD 70, which was predicted by Jesus. According to tradition recorded by Eusebius and Epiphanius of Salamis, the Jerusalem church fled to Perea at the outbreak of the First Jewish Revolt. The church had returned back to Jerusalem by AD 135, but the disruption severely weakened the Jerusalem's church influence over the wider Christian church. The first Gentiles to become Christians were God-fearers, people who believed in the truth of Judaism but had not become proselytes. As Gentiles joined the young Christian movement, the question of whether they should convert to Judaism to observe the Torah gave rise to various answers. Some Christians demanded full observance of the Torah and required Gentile converts to become Jews. Others, such as Paul, who was a newly converted Christian, as he was a Jew originally, believed that the Torah was no longer binding because of Jesus' death and resurrection. In the middle were Christians who believed Gentiles should follow some of the Torah but not all of it. In 48 to 50 AD, Barnabas and Paul went to Jerusalem to meet with the three pillars of the church, James the Just, Peter and John. Later called the Council of Jerusalem, according to Pauline Christians, this meeting, among other things, confirmed the legitimacy of the evangelizing mission of Barnabas and Paul to the Gentiles. It also confirmed that Gentile converts were not obligated to follow the Mosaic law, especially the practice of male circumcision, which was condemned as execrable and repulsive in the Greco-Roman world during the period of Hellenization of the Eastern Mediterranean, and was especially adverse in classical civilization from ancient Greeks and Romans who valued the foreskin positively. The resulting apostolic decree in Acts 15 is theorized to parallel the 7 Noahide laws found in the Old Testament. However, modern scholars dispute the connection between Acts 15 and the 7 Noahide laws. In roughly the same time period, rabbinic Jewish legal authorities made the circumcision requirement for Jewish boys even stricter. Well, there you have it, brothers and sisters. The very illustrious and interesting early church age. Catch you on the next episode, brothers and sisters. God bless you all.